is my world. This is my world. This is my world.
Open up over here in Coronado, and it's bittersweet. It's cool to see the restaurants, you know, thriving again, and the businesses like back in full business. A lot of them were on kind of semi-business, you know. You could order takeout, like that, or you could stand at the door and tell them what you wanted, but you couldn't go in there and shop. You couldn't get samples. You still, like at the gelato and yogurt places, you can't get samples still, but you see everything opening up.
Mhm.
And it's a lot more crowded. So we're riding our bikes and our skateboards, and for the last few months, we haven't had a care in the world. There's minimal people on the boardwalk and stuff like that. And now it's like, okay, watch out. These people are in the way.
No.
And it's bittersweet because we've loved quarantine. I mean, I've designed my life in the last few years to where I've gotten better at delegating.
Mhm.
And so when you really break it down, this goes for entrepreneurs or employees. Most of what you do can be delegated to someone who will do it for a less hourly rate than what you want to be making.
Mhm.
What I mean by that is, if you make $50,000 a year, then you're probably working at a $25 an hour full-time rate. And so there are people that could probably do that job for $12 an hour, $15 an hour. A lot of it, if it's manual inputting, if it's even a lot of social media stuff, a lot of things that we do that's just kind of time consuming, can be delegated for $5 an hour to someone who's super talented in another country where you can take advantage of the currency rates. And so I've been living this kind of quarantine life to where, you know, we wake up, we go jump off the bridge and do backflips. We ride our skateboards with the dogs to the playground. We get a workout at the playground. Then we ride our bike to the beach and we body surf. And then, you know, we're challenging each other to do all kinds of fun stuff. We've been really, me and my family, been living that life for a long time. And the biggest challenge has been getting friends to come join us because they're all working, right? They're all working 40, 50 hours a week when we don't have to. My busiest time is maybe a week before an epic fighting event. I have an amazing matchmaker who loves what he does, and he puts in the work for it, and he stays in touch with all the relationships for those fights. You know, he's the one matching the fights, staying in touch with the coaches, and he loves that. I have an assistant who is way more attention to detail and way better at paperwork, and she can send something over and get it, you know, DocuSign for my clients. So it's literally just, I'm going to put my client on a text with my assistant after having a conversation with my client from anywhere. It could be in, you know, Australia. And I could just say, okay, we're going to write the offer for this much, this, and that's it. CC me when you send it to the agent, or send it from my email. And that's it. So now with quarantine, there's been people who have been able to join me with the fun. You know, a lot of people are out at work, or a lot of people are working part-time now, or they're working from home, or they're homeschooling their kids like we all are. And so it's like, bring the kids, you know, like, let's go paddleboard for a little bit and do the rowboat. And it's been a lot of fun. Everyone comes like, man, you do this service. The only complaint is that we're so exhausting because we're so active throughout the day. We're doing too much, yeah. But it's been great. Like, I couldn't design a better life. The only downside for I mean, I had a couple sponsors kind of put their payments on hold, understandably, because their business was on hold and we had a fight that didn't happen. So we're kind of skipping one. But most of them, it's like, I'll take care of you double at the next show. I'll continue doing the marketing for you. And we're good. The real downside was there was a couple places we didn't get to travel to.
Mhm.
But when you live in San Diego, like right now, the weather is great. Like, as soon as we're done with this podcast, I'm taking the dogs out. I'm probably going to skateboard down to the park, do a workout. I have a group of people we work out on the grass on the bay around noon. So maybe I'll just wait and work out with them, do some yoga. But we get FOMO a lot of times when we travel, when the weather is this good in San Diego. Meaning we'll be in, you know, Costa Rica doing this fun stuff. And then we'll see posts from people in San Diego doing fun stuff here. And you really can't beat San Diego weather. And we'll be like, oh, that's what's going on right now.
You're missing out. And you're in Costa Rica. I'm missing out.
I'll share a goal with you that I've always wanted to just kind of travel for the winter. Like, I don't want to be in San Diego for the winter. The weather's, you know, I can't complain. I'm from West Virginia. Yeah, I can't complain because I'm from West Virginia. So our winters are not bad compared to, you know, East Coast or the South or Atlanta. But it's not beautiful here consistently every day in the winter. But there's tropical places that stay really warm, and we love those tropical places. Or even if we travel to Paris or someplace where it is colder, just to explore those cultures during the winter. So with this whole homeschooling thing, we realized homeschooling is not that difficult. You know, I kind of did homeschooling with my kids before they started school to get them to prep them for school. So all of my kids learned how to play chess and do their times tables and I would get them up to exponents before they started kindergarten. And they would always ask me, like, why don't you just homeschool us? We learn so much faster and so much more when you teach us stuff versus when the school does. So it would be really cool. A goal that I've had for a while, seems a little more reasonable, is to just go on a boat or, you know, travel the world, go country hopping and homeschool them for 2-3 months during the cold season.
Tested that to see how it would work.
We got to test it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm sure, like, your life that you have created, it didn't just happen overnight. It's had to be, you know, compounding of efforts and actions to be able to delegate.
Absolutely.
Because somebody starting off, I mean, I know when I met you, it was what, like maybe 8 years ago? I mean, you were already, I think you were doing epic fighting. I met you on a yacht, but that's another story for another day.
Oh, yeah, we met on the yacht, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It was an epic fighting yacht party.
Yeah.
We need to have another one of those soon. Yeah, so epic fighting is 10 years old. July 26th will be our 10-year anniversary. Or June 26th. Did I say July? June 26th is our 10-year anniversary. I need to start putting together a little party for
yacht
that,
party.
A month away, yeah.
But I mean, is that where you started, was with the epic fighting events, or did you do something before that?
I did real estate.
Okay, so
and a lot of people don't know this, that the epic fighting yacht parties and events and everything, they were often funded by people who wanted to, you know, people pitching in, or our announcer used to like, hey, I'll go halves with you. And so I wouldn't front all of the money. So epic fighting was cool because it made me look like a baller and a really big deal. The reality is I didn't turn a profit on epic fighting for 7 years. Epic fighting was literally a passion project, and how extravagant our shows were was dependent on ticket sales, sponsors, and how well I was doing in real estate to where I could put my own money into the show. So if I closed a lot of deals in the weeks leading up to epic fighting, then we could afford lighting. If not, no lighting. You know what I mean? Wow. Yeah. So if we had a lot of sponsors that were pitching in, then all the fighters would get shorts and shirts, and you know, and then I would be able to free up my time to go to other sponsors and get goodie bags for them. If not, bring your own shorts, and you know, I couldn't provide. And so a lot of those shows that, you know, there's Lamborghini parked in front, and I'm dressed in my fancy suit, which I already had from real estate, you know, which wasn't that fancy. It looks like $1,000 suit, probably a couple $100, right? Just gotta tailor it right. A lot of that was me writing a check for $10,000 after that show, because that's how much money I lost. And so that was my pet peeve, because every now and then you get a fighter who, obviously they're young, they've never ran a business or anything, and they'd be like, well, we're over here training our butts off, and you're just making all this money like we're exploiting them or something. And I was like, I would trade places with you in a second if you want to try what I've done what you've done. Now you try to do what I do, you know?
Yeah, putting an event together is no joke.
It isn't. And so to put that much time and effort into it, to lose $10,000 and then have a fighter be ungrateful, which they don't know, you know, they're thinking you made $100,000 on that show.
Yeah.
But
it's all
yeah, no.
just like you're saying. I mean, that's what we see a lot of times in social media fluff is we see
Yeah.
all these fancy,
Yeah.
things, and we're like, oh, they must be balling.
Mm-hmm. But the beautiful thing about Epic Fighting was I loved it. It was something that felt really good. It was that kind of like I made a post the other day on my Instagram about, first I made a post about happiness, and then I made a post about fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And one of the analogies I use is if I go to an MMA event like mine, I'm going to have a blast. I'm going to be in the stands. My fun meter is going to be off the charts. Mm-hmm. If I throw an event and it's my event, I might not have as much fun. There may be a lot of stress and fires I'm putting out. And, there may be like a little situation here I got to put out, and someone's mad over here, and who knows what could happen. But the fulfillment I have of accomplishing something like that. So there's a big difference between happiness and fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And the fulfillment comes from changing people's lives, helping people, making the world or making someone's life better. Mm-hmm. And happiness, you can get happiness off of drugs. You know what I mean? Happiness can be something that can happen real quick. Now, I don't recommend that because that usually follows up with depression and other things, so it's not sustainable. But, we have fun here when we're skateboarding and we're jumping off the bridge and we're doing all this fun stuff. If I say something on this podcast and I get a message from someone saying, hey, what you said inspired me to fill in the blank, that's fulfillment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Making a difference. And that can come from anything, right? Like doing
it. So all my money came from real estate. I've been in real estate for 16 years. And when I say all my money, I mean my first show, I literally put all my money into it to break even. 2010, June 26th was the first show. So, and I still do real estate to this day. Real estate still funds everything. So I help people buy homes, sell homes. And now I just add an extra caveat because I invest in properties. I'll flip them, or if I find something that's worth holding, I will. I haven't found anything recently. Mm-hmm. But I'll just say, hey, if you're in a situation where your house is beat up and you need the money right away and you don't, you need it in 5 days, not 5 months or whatever the situation is, and you can't afford to do all the repairs, and you don't want people coming in and out of your house, especially now with some people are paranoid about this COVID, I could just buy your home cash. And so that's just an extra thing. So that's where the money from the real estate comes from. I buy a home cash, fix it up, flip it. And then a lot of people I need to sell my house, and I make a commission off of that.
How's the real estate business been since COVID? Like, honestly.
Well, I was expecting prices to drop, and they really haven't too much. I mean, I have a listing that we were in escrow for $480, and this buyer seemed way more motivated, and we got a lot of traffic and a lot of showings on it, and we got a lot of offers on it. But $480 with like $10,000 back in closing costs, so we'll call it $470. And then they lost the job, they fell out, and I was like, I don't think we're going to get even low 400s now because of this COVID thing, because the offer we got was pre-COVID. Put it back on the market, was very slow, no showings. There was one a week versus like 3 a day when before the COVID thing happened. And that also happens when a listing gets stale. Oh, it's only on the market 2 days, we got to hurry versus 2 months. Mm-hmm. But then showings started picking up, started getting a bunch of offers, and we put it back in escrow for pretty close to what we had it before. So prices have not really, there was less buyers for a while, but then a lot of people took their homes off the market too. So it evened out. Mm-hmm. And so it's still a seller's market. And I don't know if prices are I don't know if this is going to affect the real estate market as much as people thought it would. If it does, it may happen in 2021. But if that's due to COVID or due to just the market was going to adjust around that time anyway, a lot of people had predicted it was supposed to adjust 2-3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the prices just kept going up. So, so in San Diego, the real estate market is still strong. There was my friend who I helped him buy all of his properties. He was really interested in buying the home right next door to his other house that I helped him buy. And they listed it and it was sold in 2 days. So the buyers are still out there, even though they claim this unemployment rate is as bad as the, almost as worst thing we've seen since the Great Depression. The people who have jobs are making good money.
Yeah, it's almost like you're either way on one end of the spectrum or the other, like in between. There's not too much of an in between right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's real estate's still good. I'm going to do a little bit of work on that today. I don't have my kids for a few hours. They're hanging out with their older sister. So get a chance to be creative and create some emails to send out to my people, remind them I'm in the real estate business.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back to like the whole mindset of,
Sure.
how you push through obstacles, because I think, doesn't it get to a point where it's more effortless? Is it harder to get, to an obstacle when it comes to like your mindset, or, okay, that's a challenge. Like, do you have a hard time finding challenges after a while?
Do I have a hard time finding challenges?
Yeah.
Well, I always challenge myself in some way, even if the challenge isn't as intense. So I was a very intense individual for most of my youth. Getting back to what you said, how it didn't just happen overnight. I went about 10 years where I didn't really take a vacation. I think we went to Hawaii a couple times for like a week or so, but I hadn't traveled any countries with my family or anything like that. And about 3 years ago, maybe pretty recent, I decided that this goal of being the ultimate parent and setting my kids up to where they are going to be more worldly and experienced and really be able to be confident and comfortable in this world includes traveling. Traveling needs to be a part of that. And I wasn't taking them traveling. And I went to the other extreme. Like, what's my idea of an epic life? I want to travel and I want to take my kids traveling as part of my goal as a parent. And so we started traveling a lot. And the biggest difference was, like you said, it was just the mindset. And so one of my favorite books that really, it inspired me, believe it or not, to start Epic Fighting was 4 Hour Work Week. And he gives all these examples of people who they just did it. And they were like, I said I couldn't for 10 years and then I did it. And now I just hear people say they can't. And I'm like, oh gosh, if you only knew. And once we started traveling, I realized like almost everything can be done from your phone. If you need to plug in a laptop, you can, but it's rare. Like usually I'll have my laptop here and I end up typing, I'll be typing on a Word doc and then I'll be like, I'll start typing from the notes on my phone and then email it and then copy and paste it to the Word doc because I want to go be outside, And that's another thing. Like 2 years ago, I decided I don't need to be in this office. I got these fake lights hitting me. I come to the office before the sun is really up and I leave the office after it's down. So I got 0 sun that day. I want that to happen 0 times in my life. And it's happening for months at a time straight, where I'm only getting sun on the weekends because I'm in the office 4 or 5 days a week for long hours. And I was like, why? Yeah, it's good to have an environment that's conducive for working. What I found was you can see just as much results if you really just prime your mind with your mindset. And maybe you're not working as long or working as hard, or maybe you are, but that work is outdoors or from your phone or in a place where you're getting the vitamin D and you're healthier. But when you change your mindset, that can make up for the hard work. I can't tell you how many people that I saw over the years, especially in real estate, because I saw it firsthand, that would brag. I was one of these people. I would brag, like, days off, I don't take them. Like, I work every day. 8 hours, add 50% to that. I'm doing 12. I'm not leaving the office till 9 o'clock at night. And I would brag on that. And then I realized, like, the people who had money, the people that were living the lives that I wanted to live, they weren't doing that. You know what I mean? Like, and don't get me wrong, they have periods of time where they're crushing it on a project that they love. When I started Epic Fighting, I was like completely, like, people talk about balance. I wrote an article many years ago called Balance is an Illusion. Like, my workouts went to crap. I went maybe 6 months without working out. Not recommending it, but you know, I still saw my kids every day because I live with them, but we weren't going on daily adventures or hanging out every day. Like, for that 6 months, I was building a company. You know, it took a couple months to do the first show. And then I had to keep going because I had another show in 6 weeks. And then I had to keep going because I had another show in 6 weeks. And I was just, that was what I engulfed myself in. But most people's MMA promotions, or fill in the blank on their type of event, but especially I know personally for MMA, most people will lose $10,000 to $30,000 on their first event and never throw another event. Or they'll do 2 or 3 events, but no one has done an MMA event around this area as long as I have. And that's because it just needed just enough focus to where I could even break even. If I break even, I live to fight another day. But personally, I just wasn't rich enough to lose 30 grand and be like, all right, let's try it again in 6 weeks. Like, I couldn't float that, you know? And so it was the power of broke. I had to make it work. I was like, okay, a billboard would help, but I can't afford $6,000 a month. What if I could trade with them? Then we'd get a billboard up. And an ad in the magazine would be cool, or an ad in the, you know, City Beat or Reader would be cool. But what if we call them up and tell them to do an article about us and a few fighters and you know, delve into their lives? Next thing you know, we're on the cover of the Reader for free, you know? And so little things like that, to where I had to really figure out a way, you know, call up 100 people today and ask if they'll sponsor, you know, that type of thing. So the first show was literally like, I was $2,000 away from getting enough money to put the show on. I had gotten, you know, X amount of money from sponsors who said they're willing to support the cause. And then Cole Casey, he was a DUI attorney. He's still a friend of mine to this day. He hits me up like, I'll drop 2,000 on that. And if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't have had the first show because I had already spent all the money I had, you know? So, yeah, I definitely, it looks easy now, but I went through that period of intense work to build it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I started to delegate, and I realized that there are people out there that are more talented than me at certain things, or they enjoy it more. Like, some people want to be sitting down at an office doing paperwork. That's what they love. They keep everything tidy and organized, and they, you know, they're attention to detail people. I'm more of a, let's talk to this person, let's negotiate, let's problem solve. That's really my strength, is problem solving.
Mm-hmm. So is that when you started to delegate, was whenever you were working so hard for so many hours?
Yeah, well, 4-hour work week talked a lot about delegating. So I hired my first virtual assistant around that time. He's still with me to this day. His name's Shakil. He lives in Bangladesh. And it was interesting because I had so many interns and externs from colleges. And the thing that they do is they'll intern or extern for you for 40 hours, and then you see if you want to hire them. Very few of them did I have any interest in hiring. And what I found was, if I hire them, you know, you pay the minimum wage, $10, $12, whatever it is at the time. And they aren't going to do as good of most of them. Now, the 2 or 3 that I did want to hire were very talented people. So I'm not going to blanket it. But, you know, my guy in Bangladesh was just, he was a little bit sharper. He had more skills. You know, they say that over there, like, someone was telling me a high school a high school graduate is equivalent to like an associate's degree here, and an associate's degree is equivalent to like a bachelor degree, and a bachelor degree is equivalent to a master's degree. And so just their education system, for those who get it, because it's not like here where everyone just automatically gets it, was just a little bit superior. Yeah, there were sometimes, you know, communication where I'd have to, okay, like Tim Ferriss says in his book, keep it on a first grade English level. Like, $10 words get lost in translation. Like, you don't need to say those big words. Just say it to where a first grader would understand it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we did. And we've grown together and learned to work together. And I've hired several other, you know, people since from that. So yeah, but I realized, you know, Gary Keller said, I was thinking about today, because I don't know, I had a bunch of kids over for the last few days, and I was up till 3 a.m. the other day, and my room's a mess. My room's always like, I make my bed first thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did my room get like that? And so I called the housekeeper, like, hey, you know what? Can you come over and help me out today? And Gary Keller says, if you don't have a housekeeper, you are a housekeeper. If you don't have a mechanic, you are a mechanic. And even if you can change your own oil, why would you spend an hour doing that when you could just take it to, fill in the blank, and they can do it for 20 minutes, do a better job. And, if you don't have a gardener, you are a gardener. Now, if that brings you joy, if gardening is like your meditation and is good for your mental health and physical health, and that's what you love, then do it. But if cleaning house isn't your jam, then don't stay at home cleaning your house every day, get a housekeeper. And so, that's really what I've seen the biggest mistake people make is they're like, oh, I could do it myself. I can do my own taxes. I could do this, I could do that. And I could sell my own house. I can't tell you how many people they just get off on being able to say that they did it. And then you look and you're like, man, you left $20,000 on the table to save $3,000, or $5,000. It didn't make sense to do it.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a line there too when it comes to, delegating or not doing shit. Like if you're not doing anything, you don't have a business, you don't have a passion, you don't have anything that you're working on, and you're not making the money to be able to delegate. Like,
oh yeah. So that's a good point. So now let's take the opposite extreme of that. When I started Epic Fighting, I did everything. The only thing I didn't do was build the website. But I was literally involved and design like the apparel, but I was still involved with the designing because I was like, no, I want this here, that. But I match made for all the fights. I hired the models. I was doing everything. I was doing all the marketing. I was, running around, getting the flyers printed, and it was really intense. So I literally did everything. And that's how I knew. I wouldn't have known that matchmaking fights was such a big deal. When I first got my promoter's license, I was one of the first people in California to get it. And they were like, all right, who are you putting down as your matchmaker? I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, who's going to match the fights? I'm like, people hire people for that? It's simple. Like, just let everybody know I'm having a fight. And if you guys want to fight, let me know. And then I'll just, you're fighting him, you're fighting him, you're fighting him. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing in the world. Fighters are not getting their blood work, they're physical, they're lying. They go and say they did it, but they got the wrong blood work done. Fighters are backing out last minute. It was ridiculous. So that was the very first person I hired was a match. That's something that I never want to do again. I've had to do it a couple times since, in between, like, hiring different people. And gosh, it's because I'll go, like, there's certain fighters that will, like, there's fighters who are fighters. And then there's guys who, they have acquired skills, but that fighting's not quite in their heart as much as the other, you know what I mean? So if a fighter changes, they'll make an excuse or this or that. And I'll I get so frustrated with that. I'll want to show up at the gym and be like, bro, did you just lie to me? Did you just tell me that you couldn't fight because X, Y, Z? And so, yeah, I'm not the best person for that.
That's like babysitting. You have to stay on top of everything.
Herding cats. Yeah. So
herding cats, circus cats.
People don't realize how tough of a job that is. So I appreciate Harvey Castellanos so much because he thrives in that environment, and not many people can do what he does. I tell you, like, you could pay someone 6 figures in that position, they would quit. Like, the person who's going to do that is the type of person who would want to volunteer to do that position at least for once or twice, because they would be so excited to try it and be in the mix and say they've done it. So if the passion's not there, it's really hard to even pace. Like, you can't incentivize someone with money easily. I'm sure there's a limit for that, right? You can pay someone enough money where they get excited, but to really make it sustainable, their heart really in it, they have to have that passion for it. Same thing with promoting. Every time I sit down with a business person, they're like, man, and that was the cool thing about Epic Fighting, is it got me seats with really important people. I'm friends with some of the most interesting and successful people in the world. And Epic Fighting had a lot to do with that. Epic Fighting started a chain of coolness or respect. The one thing that I noticed around rich people, I have a lot of rich friends who were doctors, who were attorneys and things like that. And the thing that's respected the most isn't I was, got a great grades and graduated from Berkeley and then went to law school, and the most respect, because that's a choice, that's a path that you can take and you pretty much know the outcome. Mm-hmm. All I have to do is study and get good grades, go to this school, study, get good grades, go here, then become an attorney or become a doctor, and I'm going to get paid well and live well. And then there's variations to how well, but it's going to be pretty well. You paid your dues, your sacrifice, went to school for 12 years, you have that. And so they pretty much know what they're getting. But to start something from scratch that's never been created before, and to make it into something that's actually changing people's lives, that's a tangible thing that you could go to or you could see, or it's a product that people have used or whatever, they really respect that, So they're always like, I'll be in their mansion with their Lamborghinis and Bentleys and stuff, and they're asking me, how did you do it? And I'm looking like, what do you mean, how did I do it? I haven't done anything compared to you. But in their eyes, that's the bigger deal, Mm-hmm. And so when I would sit with a lot of business people, though, when I would sit with business people, they would be like, wow, so, tell me more about the business model. And I would tell them, actually, I lost 5,000 or 10,000 on the last show. And they'd be like, does that happen? Yeah, that happens pretty often. Like, I haven't really made a profit from Epic Fighting yet. First, like I said, 7 years before I was even in the black on the books. Mm-hmm. And they would say, well, why do you do it? Why didn't you quit after like 2-3 shows? Like, this makes no sense to a lot of business people. And it's something that if the passion wasn't there, I would have quit. Only an insane person would have went 7 years of busting their ass on a company to, mm-hmm. not make a profit.
Yeah. I relate to that a lot, being in the gym business.
That's one of the hardest businesses.
Profit there.
It's tough. And I don't know if you know this, I was a fitness trainer for 6 years. And so I still have the record at the Bally's. It's the biggest Bally's in Southern California. LA Fitness since bottom out, but it was the busiest, because they say Monday's the busiest day at the gym. Our Sunday was busier than every other gym's Monday. And Sunday's like the slowest day in the gym. And so I had the record for fitness training there. I bought my first 2 houses just training, like literally training 8-10 hours a day. I showed that much income to where I could qualify to buy a house. I was crushing it with training. And the only reason I got into real estate is because someone's like, hey, everything that makes you good at training would make you good at real estate. And I was like, how so? Customer service, you care about people, you're great at sales, you're a great communicator. And they're like, only difference is when you close a deal, you'll make like $10,000 versus your, $30 an hour or whatever you're making as a trainer after, the gym took their split. And so that was kind of how I got into training. I wanted to see if there was the same fulfillment though, because training is super fulfilling. I loved fitness training because you could see the progress. Mm-hmm. Oh, now you can balance on one foot and touch your toes and come up with the weight. You didn't have that before. Oh, now you can take your shirt off. Oh, now you're going to go bikini shopping when before it was like, I'm not showing up to the pool party. Like that type of stuff is really life-changing, really fulfilling. And I was really nervous I wasn't going to get that with real estate until the first person I handed the keys. He never thought he would own a home. He was like, pinch me, Jason, I'm dreaming. And I got so much satisfaction out of it. I was like, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of how I got into real estate.
There has to be work ethic, like somewhere deep down ingrained in you though. Like where did you learn your work ethic?
I was really frustrated when I started working. The jobs that I had were really hard. And so my first job was at the Pier Cafe. I would have blisters on my feet after a long shift. My hands would be calloused sometimes from just carrying, bus tubs and all that stuff. And so I was very excited. My mentality was a little bit different. My mentality was like, I'm excited to work hard to make more than minimum wage. So minimum wage was $4.25 an hour. And I was so excited that by the time I added my $4.25 an hour plus my tips, I was making like $16 to $18 an hour, because the tips were pretty decent. The meals were a decent price. And, if you got good at busing, you could get, instead of maybe 2 or 3 servers, you might cover 4, or you would work just longer hours and sometimes get a double. And that was when the $100 bills first started having the big faces. And so I was trying to collect the $100 bills with the big faces, and I was putting them in my mattress, and I was just loving that I was earning all this money. I mean, I was living with my dad and his wife at the time, and I'm like, she makes like similar. I'm making more per hour than she is. Like, it felt really good. And so my whole thing was like, my time was very valuable. I would rather bust my butt and make this much money in this much time, and then have a day where I could go to the beach, than to have an easy job and make this much money in this much time. And so for me, it was like, oh, I don't care about not having to work hard. To me, it's the time. I want to make as much money in less time. Like, if I have to shovel crap and it's the most like god awful experience in the world, but I'm making 10 times as much money, I'll do that, every time. And so that was kind of my mentality, and the work ethic just came from being motivated. Like, when I told you I was frustrated when I was 16 to 18 years old, was because that's when I realized. So I started investing. As soon as I turned 18, I started buying mutual funds and stuff like that. I would go meet at the bank and I'd say, okay, let me give it 50% tech mutual fund. I thought I knew what I was doing. And I've learned since, when it comes to stocks and stuff, nobody knows what they're doing. Unless you're Warren Buffett, you don't know. You're gambling, right? Yeah. You're gambling. Like, let's not lie. Like, come on. But I know everything about cryptocurrency, so that's why I'm putting all my money in crypto. We're the
crypto guys right now.
You lost all your money. Shut up. You're like, expert or not, no one predicted what it was going to do. So that's why I tell people, put your money in real estate. 90% of millionaires become rich with real estate. It's tried and true. And I was really frustrated that my parents hadn't saved any money for me. And in my head, I was like, in 18 years, you couldn't come up with $10,000. Do you know what I could do with $10,000? And so when I was 18 years old, I went to buy a house. And I had saved up a bunch of money from bussing tables, right? And I was just like looking at this, I think it was like a Century 21, and there was some sign about like, purchasing a property. I was like, I'm just going to go in there. Like, worst they're going to say is like, who is this kid? And laugh at me, and I'll leave, and I'll probably never see these people again. So I went in there, and they run my credit. And they were like, how much money do you have in your bank? And do you have a recent, bank? Oh yeah, here's like this little statement I have. I had at the time like $10,000 saved up. And they were like, if your credit was better, you could buy something right now for $10,000. They're like, even if you had no credit. I'm like, well, I don't think I have any credit. Like, I only have a couple of credit cards from the college, but I haven't really used. They're like, no. So my mom had put the water bill in my name when I was 8 years old and didn't pay it. So I got really mad at the time, but looking back, like, we were pretty poor, and that was the way my mom would keep the lights, and it was just a different social security number each time, and then we were on to the next place, and we get evicted. And so I was so mad because that was still on my credit and it was hurting me. They were like, if you had $16,000, that would be 20% on an $80,000 condo. You could buy even with your messed up credit. And so I call they're like, do you have a cosigner? So I called my dad. And I was like, Dad, could you maybe co-sign for me? My mom put something on my credit when we were young and poor and living in West Virginia. And he's like, yeah, son, let me give you the social security number. So they start taking my dad's social security. They're like, his credit's worse than yours. he can't co-sign. And I was like, oh man. So I remember leaving being so mad. Like if my parents would have just had $10,000 for me, I could buy a house right now. And I just started hustling and working. And you fast forward, you know, I put that money and I end up buying a car. And then I end up 21 years old. And now I have like over $16,000 saved up. And now I'm back to looking for my first property. So when I was 21, I bought my first house. And then when you buy your first house, the work ethic comes from being scared to death you're not going to be able to make your mortgage payment. Right? Most people 21 are like living with their parents, let's be honest. At best, they're renting a room for $250 or something like that. And like today it sounds funny to say, but I remember people would lose their mind when I would say, I have a $1,200 mortgage payment. $1,200? What is wrong with you? Like everyone thought I'd lost my mind. Little 2-bedroom condo in South San Diego off Picador Boulevard. And it was just like, okay, I need more clients. I need to work extra. I was selling supplements out of the trunk of my car. I was training as many people as I could in the fitness training game. I was at the time I had multiple jobs actually. I was a fitness trainer. I was a chicken delivery guy at KFC, making tips, and I was still bussing and serving, waiting tables. And so I was just working any extra money I could to make that payment. And then I started making payments in advance because I was so nervous. So I remember I had a friend come over and he saw my statement and I was like, why does this statement say it's due on June? I was like, it's only January. And I had paid like 6 months in advance on my mortgage because I was just so scared to miss a mortgage, which is financially not the smartest thing to do with your money. But yeah, that's what I was doing at the time. Like I was doing that with all my bills. I would get checks from like the utility companies. Like they would send me a check for $200 because I would overpay. I was just sending them extra money because if something happens to me and I can't work, like I'm screwed. So that was kind of like my savings account. I would overpay all the companies just so like, all right, I'm good for 3-4 months there. Yeah. And then I bought my second property when I was 24. So yeah, I used to work a lot. And now I've been, these last few months, especially through quarantine, I've been just cruising. And if a deal comes, it comes. But I have not been, in the house or in the office hustling at all. I've been living my version of what I call the epic life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and trying to share with as many people as I can. I'm inviting people to come jump off of this bridge into the water with me. And when they come and they do it, they get that adrenaline rush and they feel excited and it feels good to share our lifestyle, My kids are loving it. My kids have the coolest.
Jumping off the bridge, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like no fear at all.
Yeah, they have the coolest life, man. I envy my kids. I wish my childhood was like theirs.
But I mean, they work hard too, and I think that that's where I struggle, like raising my boys. Is I want to push them, but like, how do you find that balance of like, where do you push them? How do you push them? But then also having an awesome life, because I mean, my kids can have me anytime. Like I'm, my time is free to them.
Right.
But I mean, how do you do it? Like, how do you push your kids? Because your son rides his bike, he runs. Like I've been seeing him since he was little running. He has to want to do that.
Well, not always actually. So the running to school, he often did not want to do that. He wanted to do something more fun, which was his scooter, his skateboard, his bike. That became mandatory because he has a lot of personality and a lot of energy. And everyone's going to say, oh, I know that's how boys are. I got boys. That's just boys being boys. No, your son did not get kicked out of 4 preschool classes. Don't tell me that it's just boys. Like he's special. He's a special kid. Mm-hmm. I have meetings with, psychologists and the principal and his teacher. And we meet in groups to try to figure out, And there's rules that are being made and changed and implemented at his school strictly because of him. There's new protocol being made because of him. So it's a different type of handful. You know what I mean? Like when he was in preschool, there was a specialist that would come from Claremont to Paradise Hills, which was where his preschool was. It was like this Catholic preschool. And he would, they would call and say, we want to make sure he's coming today, because it's preschool, you know, sometimes your kids stay home with you or whatever. We want to make sure he's coming today before we make her drive down from Claremont. And she was a specialist that was there just for him. So you got 2 teachers for the whole class and 1 extra specialist on a higher pay grade just for him. So he wouldn't hurt anyone, because he was that, like, he's got a temper, he's got emotions, and he's just physical. Like, he can't keep his hands to himself. So the reason I tell you that story is because he was, you know, every day have to do a report. And the report would say at what time of the day he was bad, basically. And there wasn't any reports at that time of him having all good days. It was like, well, lunchtime was great before he like slapped some kid's head into a locker at recess or something like that because he was playing too rough. And so one day he had a good day. And I was like, wow. So and she was like, amazing day. He was helpful. He was just, and I found out that the difference that day was we ran to the playground, we played on the playground, and then we ran to school that day. Actually, the reason why we ran to school that day was because he lost his helmet. And I said, okay, you can't ride your bike if you don't have your helmet, so you're going to run next to us. And so that was the real reason. And so he had a good day. And so instead of going to find or buy him a new helmet, I'm like, well, we're going to keep this going and see if he has a good day tomorrow, see if it's coincident. He had a good day the whole week. And so what I found was I needed to get as much energy out of him as possible. So if we ran to school, better. If we ran to the playground and played and then ran to school, much better. And so it was just getting as much energy out of him before you ask him to stay still or play with other kids like a normal kid. He has just way too much energy. He can't keep his hands to himself. Mm-hmm. And so, I made him do that, which was cool because like there was a 5K that we just kind of crashed. And he was able to run the whole 5K at like a pretty good pace because we had been running this to and from school every single day. So he ran the whole thing and he was like, we should have done the 10K, Dad. I have more energy. And I was like, wow, that's impressive.
That is so impressive. And I love that, you know, you've taken the time to like figure that out too. Because I know with our kids, like sometimes we're just like, no, sit down, be still, like stop doing that. Yeah. I have a 2-year-old that's sounds very similar. Like he hits, he chokes, and I was like, oh, it's just because he grew up in an MMA gym. And
yeah,
I have
and
to
that's
walk
what everyone blamed it on. Yeah, and that's really tough when you have a kid that's you know gets labeled as violent. Mm-hmm. First of all, parents start looking at you and they want to have words with you and stuff like that. It's embarrassing. But when you're wearing an Epic Fighting shirt when you go to pick him up, people are like, oh, well, obviously he's like that because you have MMA, you run a promote. He's been seeing that since like, no, my other girls saw that too. Well, first of all, my oldest daughter didn't see that. And she was similar. My oldest daughter and my son, they look the same. They, you know, they're the blonde hair, colored eyes, you know, golden skin. And they were similar. Like my daughter, I used to have to pick her up from preschool pretty much every other day because she would just, if you got within her space, she'd warn you twice and then she'd punch you, kick you, bite you, whatever. And then she'd be like, hey, I said move. Like she'd look at like, what do you, of course I kicked him in the face. I said move and he did it. And so it was like really tough. But luckily with her, we fixed it before she got into kindergarten. But I used to have to volunteer at the preschool to keep other kids from getting hurt because of her. I didn't own Epic Fighting at the time. Lily grew up with Epic Fighting. She's like, you know, she was 2 years old when I started it, you know, so her first words, she would talk about Epic Fighting and all that stuff. Like she was talking about that a lot when she was a kid. She saw all the fights. She was ringside on my lap. She never had a violent bone in her body. And so, and my son, you know, I didn't really get him training as much as my other girls. And he just, it had nothing to do with the MMA. That's what everyone thought. Like he was trying to headbutt people with his head when he was like before he could walk. He just needed that. He needs that contact. That's just his way of like, he feels better when he does it, which has been very difficult. But he's a fun kid. He's got personality, and he's got a lot of really good traits. You know, he's kind of on this extreme where his good traits are off the chart and his bad traits are off the chart too. But we're making progress.
Well, I think it's awesome, you know, whenever we learn even our kids' traits that can be like the stubbornness or, you know, just doing their own thing. I think that it's going to be an amazing, you know, journey for them in life to be able to capitalize on their traits, to be able to do epic things too. Because I think like some of us, like for me, like I was, you know, suppressed on my traits, and I had to like figure out my traits all over again as becoming an adult. And it's like those things are what really can make us, you know, do epic, you know, things in our business and in our life, and knowing where we want to be and what we want to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I try to nourish the things that they want to do. Like, you know, a lot of parents would like, my kids wake up and we're like, can we go jump off the bridge real quick before we start our homework and stuff? And, you know, sometimes I have to lay down the law and be like homework first and all that stuff. But I try to let them do all the crazy adventures, fun stuff that they want to do. You know, I don't try to if my daughter says, can we bake a cake today? I want to bake a cake with my friend. She's really into do it yourself and baking and projects and all that type of stuff. I try to nourish that as much as I can to cultivate it. Just because I might not know how to do it or I might not be into it. Like, yeah, take my card, go to the store, get whatever cake materials you need to bake and have at it. And same with JJ too. If he wants to do something or play something, I try to get on it right away. I love it that they skateboard and paddleboard and do all this fun. Like you should see my son out there on the paddleboard. Like adults are having trouble and the wind's blowing them and they can't come back, and he's just rolling away like nothing. Like he's brave.
Didn't you write a post the other day about your kids, like how they push you or challenge you or you learn from them or something?
Yeah. So we had been jumping off of that bridge, and I had done a dive, and that was it. But like they wanted to go at night, and it was cold. Like it was windy and it was cold, and the water. We jumped in the day when the sun was out and it was warm, and the water was like 53 degrees in the day, which is pretty cold. Like it's kind of like you'll get a brain freeze when you're in it type of cold, you know? And it was fine because you get out and the sun would dry you off and you'd warm back up. But they wanted to do it at night. And I was like, oh gosh, that's very uncomfortable. And I know we're going to be there jumping over and over. When you get out, it had been pretty windy. The wind's going to be hitting you on this cold water. And you're going to be so cold that the cold water is going to be warmer than the air being out of the water. So you're going to want to jump back in. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go. I'm not going to bring a towel. I'm just going to do my Wim Hof breathing, right? I learned how to do the ice baths with the Wim Hof and all that. I took a Wim Hof class. And I'd always been like that. I never took a towel to the beach. I always got in the water. To me, it was always this challenge. It was this mind over matter challenge. And so I'm like, I'm not gonna be a little punk and be like, oh, I don't really feel like it right now. So we go and we're jumping off the bridge over and over at night. And it's memorable. It's fun. Anytime you're like doing stuff like that, getting out of your comfort zone, it's just like you remember those things for the rest of your life. Remember when we used to jump off of that bridge into the water at night, and then like when you first hit the water, you go under and it's just all black, but then you come up and it's still no light and it's dark all on the water, and you're like, it's that eerie feeling. You get kind of giddy. It's like it's a little scary, a little exciting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So we kept doing it. And then it got to the point where I can do a swan dive. I'll jump at night and everything. What's the next level of getting out of my comfort zone? And her friends are doing backflips. And I'm like, all right, that's super scary. It's a little sketchy. When the waves come, the bridge goes up and down because it's floating. The bridge is floating. So, you know, it can start rocking really like, you know, from here to here rocking. and there's no rail to hold on to. So I kind of like the first few times held someone's hands and got up there. And first time I over rotated, kind of did a little bit of a back buster. And they were like, slow it down. You don't have to do a back tuck. You can just do the back layout. And so now I'm perfecting that. Most of my fear, it's still a little bit scary, but first couple times it was like super adrenaline rush, freaky, you know? And then we'll just keep pushing ourselves. We're just going to keep like, what's the next thing we could do that's a little bit scary? At the skate park, doing the drop-ins. You know, right now I can do the drop-ins on the baby ramps. But the big 8-10 foot drop-ins, like I can't do it. I'm too scared. It's too freaky for me. But it's just that, you know, you're always progressing in something if you want to keep from being depressed. Mm-hmm. Anytime someone's depressed, I'm like, easier said than done. But it's literally as simple as like, let's get you doing something where you'll progress. Mm-hmm. That's it. And I don't want to make light of depression. It's a serious issue. People commit suicide every day because of it. If you look at what they were doing, they were usually in their room, out of the sun, not even reading or anything like that. Just, you know, maybe going through social media and feeling sorry for themselves. And so that progression creates fulfillment, it creates happiness, it creates self-worth, and it doesn't really matter what it is. It can literally just be at a skate park trying to go for the next drop-in. It could be, you know, first I did the butt scoot jump off the bridge, now I'm standing up jump, now I'm going to go for the dive. Or it could be I'm doing an online class, or I'm in, you know, whatever it is, progressing. It could be closing deals. Like nothing feels better as when, like, if I get a new sponsor for Epic Fighting, you know, like, all right, this is our monthly plan. This is what we're going to do for you. This is how we can collaborate. And being in business for so long, owning multiple businesses and being in real estate, I like to dissect. Tell me more about your business. I've never once sold a sponsorship by saying, here's option A, B, or C. Which one do you like? It's always tell me about your business. I'll tailor it for what will work for you. Does this price sound reasonable? That usually works. Then I feel good because I feel like I'm going to help this person. This is going to be fun for this person. The company's going to do better. I'm going to be able to do more for the fighters. I'm going to be able to, you know, the company's going to have more resources to create these epic events. And it's just such a fulfilling thing. But that's my business. That's my epic fighting business. If I help somebody sell their house and now they get to put $50,000 or $150,000 in their bank account, that's fulfilling. Getting that email, congratulations, we've closed, that's fulfilling. And we live in a world where money is important. You do need money to fund that epic life, right? And so I can't stress it more because I see so many people close to me. That's why I'm kind of like, all you have to do is progress. Like on anything, write down what you want to, little things you want to try, little things you want to achieve, and get outside, get some sun. Mm-hmm. It's hard to be depressed if you're jet skiing in the sun or on a sunny day, or if you're skateboarding down the boardwalk and it's a beautiful day out and you're getting fresh air. It's like really difficult to be depressed in that moment, you know? So that's my message to the people that are struggling with that, because I live right here in Coronado. I see the Coronado Bridge, and we've had more traffic stops from people who are about to jump. A couple of them have jumped during this quarantine, because what has stopped during quarantine? Progress. Well, I don't have my job anymore. There went my self-worth. There went my identity. I'm just sitting in the house now doing nothing. I tried looking for jobs. Everyone's scared to hire right now. Boom, they want to jump. I've been stuck with this person that I'm dating, and now we're getting on each other's nerves, and then we can't stand each other and we break up, and I want to kill myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so this quarantine has, you know, I would probably guess that there have been more suicides from this quarantine than even the fake death count that they've had, which I could go into that whole thing. But even with their fake numbers that they've already disproved, and they dropped, like San Diego had 1,000 and something deaths or 2,000 deaths. And then they went back, or I don't remember exactly how many, but it was a lot of deaths. And they went back and said, okay, just kidding. If you want to look at actual corona deaths, not I had a heart attack, but I happened to test positive corona, like actual corona deaths, there's been 6 in San Diego, which is horrible. But there's been a lot more than 6 suicides.
Uh-huh.
as far as the increase of suicides, not just suicides, there's always suicides, right? And suicides will always kill more people than this coronavirus was even predicted to, which it never did. But the increase from the lockdown, so to speak, so it had a lot of negative effects on people and probably killed a lot more people than if they would have just let the coronavirus do its thing.
Well, I think
That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, you've said a lot of important things right there, because I mean, mental illness is definitely something that is going to be a struggle for people, you know, more so right now, having to be locked up, you know, in their homes. Like you said, you know, there's no progress. So to be disciplined enough to find something to do, whether it's, you know, like you said, get outside, get some sunlight, movement, turn on some music. Like there's things that we can do. It's just being disciplined enough to do them and push, give
Right.
a little bit of a push to do it.
And it's hard when you're in a funk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you don't want to.
Like, but yeah, people look at me and they're like, well, you've never had a bad day before. You've never like, and that's not true. Like, I'll be the first to admit, yeah, I don't stay in a bad mood for very long, but that's because I know I don't want to, and I know I'm not supposed to, and I know there's things I could do. The last thing I want to do when I'm in a funk, when I'm feeling like crap, is to go work out. Like, I just don't feel like it. But I've done it enough times to know that 10 minutes in that workout, I'm forgetting about my problems. 45 minutes into that workout, I already know the rest of my day is going to be better. Everything has changed. I've now gotten more oxygen. My hormones have changed. And so I know it works. You know, like they say, the toughest part of the gym is getting there. The hardest part is just showing up to the gym. Mm-hmm. With me, I've been working out outside and doing stuff like that. But the hardest part is to start the workout. Once you start, you're good. You know, once you start, you're all right. Do some stretches, you know, do some yoga, go on a bike ride, whatever. But yeah, and the big thing, so the mother of my children has been hanging out here the last few days, a lot more than usual, kind of like seeing how we live. And she's just like, oh my gosh, you guys really live the life. Like, she's like, I can't, you guys just live in the coolest place. You do the cool, like your whole day is a vacation. Like you guys just have fun all day. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we do. Like, it's hard to be depressed in this environment. Now, granted, you can just have fun, and lack fulfillment, and depression can seep in. But I remember she used to tell me when we were together, because she would get stressed out very easily, and she would have bad days, and she would tell me like, well, you don't understand because you're always in a good mood. You're always happy. And it would get to the point where it would kind of annoy her. Like something bad would happen, and then later on that day, I'm smiling. And she'd be like, doesn't it bother you? I'm like, well, of course it bothered me. And then I did what I could do about it, or there was nothing I could do about it. And I think a lot of that for me comes from perspective. So like the best thing you can do is put things in perspective. Like, oh, really? That's sad you lost your job. You still live in San Diego. You still, you know, have X, Y, and Z. You have a car. Like, you know how many people will never have a car for their whole life? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I grew up in a place where I saw a lot of violence. I saw a lot of people close to me die. When I speak on stage, I'll sometimes share the story of all the kids I grew up with, maybe 30-something kids. Only a handful made it past 30. Wow. And even those few that made it past 30, most of them have since died. I don't think there's 5 of us still alive to this day. There's 3 I can think of from our immediate neighborhood that are still alive. And so, you know, I feel so blessed. Like, what set me apart from all those kids? Really, what was the difference between me and those kids? My mother was on drugs. Their parents were on drugs. My mother was a drug dealer. The drug dealers were around me all the time. And so, okay, maybe you were born a little bit different, or maybe my mom did things that, you know, that helped me. You know, she raised me a little bit different way, or something in that. But really, a lot of it probably has to do with when I was about 10 years old, I got to visit my dad. So I was raised with my mom, right? And I got to visit my dad in San Diego. And so when you're not in school and you have all that free time to get in trouble, I was in San Diego going to the beach, doing all this fun stuff and seeing a new world. You know, San Diego, we were in the South Chula Vista, Oxford Terrace apartments, 90% Mexican population. Our school had one Mexican girl who didn't speak a lick of Spanish, you know? You were black, white, or mixed for the most part. And the others got put in the black, white, or mixed category. I remember we had an Indian girl and they were like, she's white. I was like, wait, I think her last name's Wolf. I think she's American Indian. They're like, white girl. I had she was like a cousin of a cousin. They were Filipino, black girl. Like we were so narrow-minded that all we knew was black, white, or mixed, right? We had no cultural experience there. Mm-hmm. Then you come out here, and South Chula Vista was mostly, you know, Mexican population, but the rest of San Diego was a melting pot, very diverse. And so, you know, I got to see this glimpse, a little bit of proximity to another world out there. My friends had never been on a plane, never been more than 20 miles outside of the city. And so it's like that world is their world. It's all they know. Mm. And so whenever people are like, oh, doesn't it suck that this, and this happened? I'm like, did you see the palm trees outside? Do you know that the ocean is right there? Like my favorite thing when I was a kid, like when I came to San Diego, I would be off the plane. I was like, we don't have to stop at the house. We can just go straight to the beach. Like, oh, it's 6 o'clock, son. The sun's going to be, you know, it's not that strong. It's not that hot. Let's go to the beach. I don't care. Let's go to the beach. My dad would get off of work at, you know, 5 and get to the house around 5:30, 5:45. And the only beach he wanted to go to at the time, because he said it was cleaner, was Pacific Beach. And we lived in South Chula Vista. And I'd be like, we're not going to get there till 6:30, son. That's fine. Let's go. And I just wanted to be at the beach. So yesterday, we ride our bikes to the beach, and I literally was telling my kid, I need to cleanse my soul. The waves cleanse my soul. I have to get there. So we were cruising to the beach.
You would say this when you were a kid?
No, this was me yesterday.
Oh, okay. I was like, oh my God.
This was me yesterday telling my kids. So yesterday, I get on my bike, I'm playing music. We're taking the alley because my kids don't want to wear helmets and we're going to get stopped by the cops. Go ahead, you guys can judge me. And we're riding our bike to the beach, and the music's playing, and I have this excitement in my head that I'm going to get in the water and body surf and ride these waves. And they were like, why are we going to the beach? Why don't we just jump in the water in the bay again and do this and do that? I was like, because I need to cleanse my soul. The waves literally cleanse my soul. It's my happy place. It changes everything about me. I don't know if it's the cold. I don't know if it's the salt. I don't know if it's just, you know, the hertz, the frequency of the earth, you know, the negative ions of the waves, whatever it is. You can tell me the scientific explanation later. But every time I go in the ocean, I ask myself, why did I take so long in between being in the ocean? Even if I was just in the ocean 2 days ago, it was like, why did I wait so long? I've never had a moment where I'm in the water where I didn't think, why did I wait so long to be here? And so I feel really blessed now that we live in Coronado, and we live on the bay side, so we can always jump in the ocean in the bay, and we bike, you know, 6-minute bike ride to just get into the Coronado, the ocean waves.
Wow. You know, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. I just looked at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, we've been on for about an hour, over an hour now. But I think that there's a lot of nuggets, and I hope that our listeners really hone into some of the information that you shared, even just your story and how to create your most epic life, because I'm on my journey personally right now to create my most epic life as well. So you've inspired not just me, but I'm sure, you know, our future listeners as well. So I really appreciate you, Jason. And is there anything, like, last comment or something that you want people out there to know or to hear about, you know, your experience of life? Like if you wanted the world to know one thing about life, what would you say?
life is a game that you create. And I would say that if you could feel the sense of accomplishment, it would inspire you to accomplish more things. So one of the tools that I would recommend people do is write down a list of things they want to accomplish. Literally, if you look at those flowers right there, I had on my to-do list last Tuesday was I want to get flowers from the farmer's market, put in my house so my house smells good. Stargazer lilies and sunflowers, right? And so then I do it, and it's like just the small sense of accomplishment, because a lot of people will just write their big goals. I want to make $1 million. I want to travel around the world. I want to do create this company. I want to do this. But then when they don't do it in those time frames, they start to build doubt, you know? So your body just knows you did or you didn't. It doesn't know like, well, that was a huge goal, so it was a slim chance. I was just small accomplishments. Okay, I want to do 50 dips at the playground today. And then you do it, and it's a small accomplishment. I want to work out for 20 minutes, but then you ended up doing 45 minutes, so now you're an overachiever. So get used to achieving things. Get on a winning streak is what I call it. Get on a winning streak, and then write down whatever it is like that you feel is your epic life, and keep it in front of you. Whether it's a vision board, write it on your notes, take a screenshot, and make that your screensaver. So just subliminal messages. Every time you look at your phone, you got your 10 list or your 5 list or whatever of things that you want to achieve in your life. And it'll just keep you on the right track. Because we'll have this goal, and then we'll get steered in the wrong track, and then we'll kind of forget that that was important to us. And so, yeah, that's what I would say. This whole epic life is like something that I've just in my head. What's the most epic shit you could do, you could live? I decided I want to get sun every single day. I decided I want to be able to play and be active. I don't want to be a guy that just goes to the gym for an hour and comes out and I got my pump and that's it. I want to be the guy that could go to the gym or work out at the park and have some functional fitness, but still have energy to ride my bike, to run, to swim, to do all those types of things. So that's just what I designed as one of my goals. I still have places I want to go, things I want to do, and become friends with the most interesting people in the world. That was been written down. It's on my vision board right now. So write it down. It's many, many times more likely to happen. And then live the epic life.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being our guest. And
thank you for having me.
I am so excited about this episode to release. So, so thank you.
I love what you're doing. I love your positivity. I've been following your stories and your hilarious posts and stuff.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it.